it out of the park, didn't it, ladies and gentlemen? Yes, and I think without further ado, we'll introduce our second talker tonight, Rosie Davies.
Hello everyone, my name is Rosalind and I'm a postgraduate researcher, or PGR, from the University of Birmingham. I'm also known as Rosie and I'm a triathlete in training, and I'll let you work out that acronym for yourself. So I'm normally quite good at keeping these two lives separate, as Rosalind the researcher and Rosie the athlete, until, I think it's quite a good idea swimming before a conference and I rock up to the networking event sort of wearing eau de chlorine and sporting some rather fabulous goggle marks. But in between my cycling and my running, I research materials for hydrogen storage. Now, hydrogen has an odd public perception. Either people remember doing the squeaky pop test in a test tube at school, or they remember Hindenburg. But either way, they know it goes boom. Which, coincidentally, is what makes it such a good fuel. Unfortunately, it's not ideal when you're trying to persuade people that they really, really want to drive around with a tank of it in their car. What these people fail to remember is that they do actually every day drive around with a tank of flammable liquid on board. And what they actually do with it is repeatedly set it on fire to get them moving. Now that's the advantage of hydrogen, in that you combine it with air in a fuel cell, and this makes electricity. Now, this not only seriously improves the efficiency of your car, but also your smugness. This is not just any car. This is a zero-emissions, hydrogen-powered car. Drive past a Prius in one of these, and you can give them the dirtiest look ever. That is, of course, if it works. So a few years ago, there were some researchers in my group working on one of the first hydrogen cars in the UK. And there was a local politician who thought, I know, I'm going to get on this, I'm going to look really good, I'm going to be driving this hydrogen car, looking really smug. It's going to work out for everyone. That was, of course, until he got there and the car had decided that day that it wasn't going to work. So what followed was some quite clever editing, with a politician looking very smug in a car that resembled quite a lot like one of those little Toys R Us cars they used to get when you just sort of walk around like this. And actually it was powered in a very similar manner, because what you can't see from the film is my mate Tony behind it, just pushing him around campus. But things have actually got a lot better since then. Like manufacturers like Toyota and Hyundai are making cars that you can actually buy. Not of course that you would. I mean, they're far too expensive. But that's where us researchers come in. If you want to do something cheaper, then get students to work out how to do it. It's the ideal solution. So the most expensive part of a hydrogen car is the storage. And that's because hydrogen is a gas, the molecules like to be as far away as possible, and you have to compress them together to get them in a tank. It's kind of like, if you imagine, right, all the things that you'd like to take on holiday, okay? Now try and fit those into a bag that you can actually take on a Ryanair flight. It's just not possible. So I work with chemicals that react with the hydrogen, they create a powder, and you can pack that nicely into a tank. Simple, so I should be a millionaire, right? Well, sadly that's not the whole story. These chemicals, they react so well with hydrogen, they're just that awesome, that it's quite difficult to get it back out again. So you're sat there in your hydrogen car with your hydrogen in the tank, and then, well, you can't use it, it's not really useful. You have to really heat the hell out of it to get anything useful. So I'm working on lowering this temperature so that we can get the hydrogen out. But day to day, what I do is I grind white powders together and then heat them up. Oh yes, it's that good. But it's actually not that easy, and that's mainly because these white powders are, well, they're air sensitive and water sensitive. And when I say sensitive, I mean explode violently on contact. Which is interesting because that's actually how we dispose of them. You sort of approach a bucket of water with a sample and sort of tip it in and then run quite fast in the other direction. That's where the triathlon training comes in handy. But that means that I have to do all of my work in a glove box. And unfortunately, this doesn't mean that I sit all day in the passenger seat of my car fiddling through the sweet wrappers. A glove box, if you imagine, sort of a mini lab. And when I say gloves, I mean, you know those kind of black gloves you see on telly when someone's going to put their hand sort of an embarrassingly long way up the back of a cow. You imagine sort of 3 of those in a row in a perspex wall, and there's sort of a mini lab behind it. So you want to do all your work with the hands, and the gloves are quite big, and my hands are quite small, so I can't control anything. So I have to do all of my work using tweezers. So believe me, I am ace at playing Operation. So when I'm in there, I'm in the glove box with the tweezers. Right, what I've got to do is I have to fill tiny, tiny glass tubes. So I'm talking 0.5 millimetre thick here with the powder. So it's obviously it's too small to sort of just poke it down or something small enough to go in. And you can try a bit of sort of Taylor Swift, sort of shake it off, shake it in. But that's actually really quite hard to do when there's a perspex wall between you and your sample. So what would be ideal is something that shakes really quickly or vibrates. So I had to think of something. I was at home on my own on a Saturday night, so think of something that I could bring in that would vibrate and would be quite easy to use. So after a lot of discussions with my supervisor, it was decided that my idea was a bit too rampant. We had to go with Tom's Top Gear Stig toothbrush instead. So after all the grinding, all the glove box and the tweezers and the toothbrush, well, it doesn't always work. And that's when the glove box is really quite handy, because the big perspex wall gives you something quite handy to bang your head against. Although obviously it must go well sometimes, because I have been in the lab before to see a nice red lipstick mark, so clearly it gets some affection from somewhere. So all these things are quite challenging, but none of them are quite as challenging as the other part of my job, which is supervising undergraduate master's students. So every year, a PhD student will get given a young student who's highly skilled and motivated and wanting to further the research in their field. I wish. Opinion, I think, is probably quite complimentary because it assumes that their presence adds value. Really what it adds is broken glass and sort of broken bits of equipment. So some of them know they're rubbish. Some of them turn up and they've done 3 years of undergraduate labs, and they're quite aware of the fact that what they do is always wrong and always kind of puts themselves and others at danger. But they're not so bad, because they'll approach things quite cautiously and they won't do anything without asking you. So although it can be quite annoying being continually asked, at least you know they're not going to break anything. The ones you have to worry about are the ones that think they know what they're doing. They'll go off, they'll disappear, and they'll come back 3 days later with I made this. And you'll be like, really? How did that happen? And then you sort of look at the devastation behind it. So it was your laboratory, and now you're going to have to spend the whole of the summer trying to fix before the next lot come in. And it's times like that when you're really struggling with wondering what on earth it is that you're actually doing, and you think, I know, I'll sign up for stand-up comedy. So I'm doing this stand-up as a series of challenges across 2013 to raise money for a charity that's quite close to my heart. So if you Google my name, Rosie Davies, and the charity, the Lullaby Trust, then you'll find out all about what I'm doing for the rest of the year, and I will leave it up to you to decide what is more terrifying and intimidating, this stand-up, or the mountain racing, or the skydiving that I have planned for the rest of the year. But thank you for listening, and enjoy the rest of your evening.